Who do you hope is doing okay? My dad. Him and my mom got divorced, but she initiated everything and he was totally blindsided by it. I don't blame my mom, of course, and she's doing well. She has a lot of friends and a boyfriend. But my dad doesn't have many friends outside work and he hasn't really dated anyone. Spend time with him. Even if you don't particularly enjoy it, it would mean the world to him. I ate at this little Cuban place 3 years ago and the only dude working there was the owner, waiter and cook. The place was empty but the food was great and the guy had a lot of heart. Sometimes when my mind wanders I think of that little Cuban dude and just hope that business picked up and he was able to keep his restaurant. I really hope my first real girlfriend is doing okay. We haven't spoken in years but we share some Facebook friends. Last I checked she had a painkiller addiction and was living with a dealer. Not that I want to run off with her, but she is a human that I cared for and I genuinely hope she is doing okay. A Native American girl named Lacey who was in my elementary school for a year. She was my only friend, but then she moved and since we were like 7 we didn't stay in touch. Her mom was a substitute teacher at the school. She loved wolves and she gave me a gold-colored watch. I still have it. I don't know what tribe she's from or anything else aside from that. I hope I find her again someday. You could try to use an internet archive to find a faculty page on your school's website in the past. Tim Curry. Me and my wife were talking about him earlier. I didn't even realize he had a stroke. The new baby turtles on the Galapagos Islands. Michael Schumacher. I'm sure there are idle speculations that Schumacher is now a paralyzed, frail, old man and that his family's silence over his condition may support that. It may be true, it may not be. For me, Schumacher is always that no-nonsense German F1 driver who won 7 WDCs and one of the greatest. I choose to remember him as that over anything else. Sarah Bird Rogers, widow of Mr. Rogers. Honestly, I have a feeling that living with that man every day and having him part of your life would be a gift without measure. The greatest sadness she could have is to be without him. My grandpa. After being married for 70 years, my grandma decided to file for a divorce from him a few months back. Today actually she just flew with my mom to live with her in the Midwest. It sucks. I went out to visit grandpa a few weeks back and I could tell that he has just lost all his will to live. I always viewed my grandparents' marriage through the traditional World War II, 1940s lens. Grandpa was a veteran when he returned home and met grandma. They were engaged after 2 weeks, married after a year, and had spent the rest of their lives happily ever after. Sure, there was the occasional dust up, but all in all they adhered to my idyllic, Hollywood version of what marriage symbolized back in those times. Come to find out, my grandparents stayed married for a whole different set of circumstances. That is, convenience, complacency, and societal norms. I am happy that my grandma has chosen to be happy with her remaining years, but I can't help but worry about my grandpa. I guess not every love story ends like The Notebook, with the old couple dying in a loving embrace after spending their lives together. After being married for 70 years, my grandma decided to file for a divorce from him a few months back. I honestly can't imagine committing to such a significant change after such a long time. 70 years is almost twice as long as I've been alive. Ali Brosh, the wonderful woman behind Hyperbole and a Half. She seemed like she spent a lot of her life in a bad place and I hope that's not true anymore. I hope she made enough cash with her amazing book that she's had the downtime she needed to get happy. I hope that she's really, genuinely thriving now, and that's why we haven't really heard from her since 2013. I hope it's because she's left that part of her life genuinely behind her. She was on the Jocko Cruise, a nerd cruise put on by Jonathan Coate in the last 6 years and awesome as heck. This year in February, she looked great and did a whole lecture talk thing on mental illness and her comic. I didn't go to it cause I was seasick at the time, but my so did and told me about it. I don't know if she said anything about her future plans or not though. I bet you're going through a lot of crap that you haven't told anybody about. Keep at it, man. I had a couple of dates with a girl about 3 years ago who was basically suicidal, which considering the things she's gone through isn't surprising. She had absolutely no self-esteem, and while we chatted on Facebook she would frequently ask me why I went for her and not someone who was actually pretty. For the record, she was definitely not unattractive. Just 4 days after the second date she suddenly texted me saying she couldn't continue with this in her current mental state. She'd already been in hospital twice in the few months I knew her, and had to break it off. The last I heard, about 6 months later, she had moved to a different city and things were starting to improve until her mum died. I really hope things have improved for her since then. A kid I met in West Africa in 1990. He was homeless and living on the streets of Niamey, the capital of Niger, a very poor country. He was really sweet and spent some time showing us around. We asked him what he needed, and he responded long pants and a flashlight, so we bought them for him. We gave him all the money we could spare. I always wondered about how things worked out for him. My grandparents. Though I see them all the time, the most recent visit was a little awkward. The light conversation took a turn and my grandmother started talking about how, forget being intimate together, my grandfather hadn't even patted her on the shoulder in over a week. It's been many long years of little intimacy and physical affection. She thinks he doesn't love her and it's made her bitter. My sweet quiet pop just kept saying that he did love her, and then sat quietly, and with his head hung. It was very tense and heartbreaking. I love them so much. They are the kindest, most loving grandparents. I never knew how much unhappiness was beneath the surface. Pop, Mimi, I love you so much, and I hope you are both gonna be okay. No one is too old for marriage counseling. It sounds like they really do love each other and Gramps just needs some heck expressing himself. They might enjoy going to some sessions together. Not anyone famous, but in April at my university, there was a horrible car crash that killed 4/5 girls in the car, 3 of them being my friends. The driver is the only one who survived and is currently inpatient at a spinal brain injury treatment center. I think about her every day. The guy who stood in front of the tanks in Tiananmen Square. Nobody knows what happened to him after the event. I hope he made it out okay and hid, and wasn't tortured by the Chinese government. I heard Chinese officials were seen taking him off into a crowd, so he's probably been dead for decades. Brendan Fraser. Probably a weird one, but Joe Biden. I get people on here will say this or that about him, but that guy has lived through real tragedy. I don't care what his title is, there are some times, when he's alone, where he's got to ask why him. Last night during the Turkey coup, there was a single ATC at Ataturk Airport. This was a heck hole, with civilian planes stacked up on the runway trying to leave. She was the only one monitoring it very late at night and very early morning. At one point it is safe to say by communications from the tower that there were armed men in the tower with her. The whole time I was listening I was thinking, dang, that must be heck. Not knowing if the government might fall, with fighter jets and sonic booms and gunshots in the distance. She kept doing her job and controlled the situation at the airport. Hope life's giving her an easier time now. Any child born into crappy circumstances. Born to parents who don't want them or who took their own bitterness or anger out on the kid. Kids who get beaten, starved or neglected. Kids who go to school with ragged clothes and no lunch while their parents drink away their food money. Kids born with horrible defects because their mother didn't lay off the drink drugs during the pregnancy. I know hope isn't enough, but I think about these kids often. As someone who was born into an abusive home, I'm doing surprisingly okay and I often wonder why. One day I hope I can do my part and maybe be a foster parent. My boyfriend's parents are foster parents and knowing about the environment the foster kids came from and seeing how they are all doing now is amazing. My ex. I broke up with her because I felt we weren't going to be compatible in the long run. She was devastated. As part of a recovery tactic or whatever, she blocked me on Facebook and changed her phone number and email address. She's a nice girl with a warm heart, and while I stand by my decision to end our romantic relationship, I still care about her and hope she's doing okay. I have no way of knowing one way or another, since she went to great lengths to remove me from her life. I feel I should respect that and not try to dig her up via any other means. I'm on the other end of this. I was destroyed when she broke up with me, and I really needed to get over her. So to make myself stop stalking her on FB, I unfriended and blocked her. Looking back, I look like a child for it, and somewhat regret it. However, it did work towards getting me over her. Amanda Bynes. Hang in there, girl. The Turkish conscripts tricked into the coup and executed beaten when they surrendered. Poor kids. Everyone. You too. UCQ0IA. I really hope David Attenborough's doing okay. He's getting up there in age, but he's so pure and good and nothing bad should happen to him. With 2016 going the way it is, I have a mini heart attack every time I see him mentioned anywhere. My estranged brother, he had a falling out with the family and cut off ties. He now lives on the West Coast. We're all on the East Coast. I always thought it would sort itself out by now, but it's starting to look like it never will. We were all really close, especially us three brothers. I miss him. Rima Horton. She was with Alan Rickman since they were in their teens. I can't imagine what it must be like to lose someone so suddenly after being with them every single day for many years, though I know I and everyone must go through this eventually. My oldest friend. Her and I go back years. We stopped talking many years ago due to unfortunate circumstances. A few months back she reached out to me and we have been hanging out regularly ever since. It is just like we picked back up where we left off with our friendship so many years ago. Last week she texted me she had something to tell me in person, so we went for a walk at the park. Sitting under a tree she told me that she had recently been to a neurologist who informed her she has a mass in her brain. It's inoperable and she doesn't want to go through chemo again as she has already gone through it twice. The doctor has given her 6 months to live. I'm losing my best friend again and I just got her back. She told me today she has had a bucket list for a long time and she is never going to be able to do any of them. I'm sitting here with tears running down my cheeks as I type this on my phone. At only 27 years of age I was hoping we had more time with her. I wish she was doing okay. My dad. He's a 911 operator and he hates his job so much, but money's tight and he doesn't really have any other options that are near the pay he's built up these last 15 years. I had to call 911 for the first time yesterday. The operator on the other side was extremely helpful and kept me calm. Thank your dad for doing his job. It's not an easy job and I've never been more grateful for those behind the line. There was a man whose partner died whilst they were on honeymoon in Australia. Since they were a gay couple and gay marriages are not recognized here, he had to fight to get it put on the death certificate that he was his spouse. He got what he wanted eventually and then left to go back home to England, but on the way there he went through Hong Kong and had his partner's ashes taken off him temporarily by customs because they didn't understand that was his husband. I hope he's back home and is healing and finds happiness again. He's actually a friend of a friend. He's had a few more bureaucratic issues since coming home, but he's holding up. Richard Simmons. Patton Oswalt. He's a genuinely nice guy that works really hard and obviously loves his family. To lose a spouse so young and suddenly, particularly when you have a child, can be devastating. I know he has struggled with depression. Also, the people of France. The last few months have been terrible for them. Stanley. He's healthy for his age, but at 93 that's not saying much. He can't die. He lives one day longer on average every time someone buys a Marvel comic book. It's like the cheap version of sucking the life out of someone to extend your own. Anyone desperately looking for their name in this thread? You caught me. I spend a lot of my life feeling like I don't belong here, or that I'm an easy person to leave and forget. I spend a lot of time desperately looking for proof that I'm wrong. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.